the different types of publishing paths that are available, different types of self-publishing options, and the things to look out for so that you don't get scammed. I've been getting a question very frequently recently, and they're worded differently, but they're all asking about what is the right path for publishing their book, and various questions related to the amount that they'll be investing. There are questions about publishers asking for a certain amount and if it's okay to pay that amount, or facing some issues with publishers regarding royalty payment and all. So today's video is for you if you're interested in the publishing world or if you're just curious. If you're new here, hi, I'm Pooja, and on this channel I share my experiences about writing, self-publishing and productivity. So click subscribe to follow my unpredictable writing and publishing journey. Let's first talk about the different publishing paths that are available, and I want to club everything up in 3 buckets. So first is traditional publishing, and there are different types of publisher under traditional publishing, and then there is hybrid publishing and then self-publishing. When it comes to traditional publishing, I'm not a traditionally published author, so I cannot give you a lot of input and speak from my experiences, but just broadly speaking, what you should know about traditional publishing. There are 3 different categories, I would say, under traditional publishing. So the first one would be publishers that are Big 5 or Big 4 now. I don't know if it's gone through. Anyways, so the Big 5 is the big publishing companies. They have a very strict process through which they vet the books that they publish. And then there are medium publishers or imprints. Usually they are under big companies, and what I've seen is that for different genres, big companies then have their imprints that specialize in publishing certain genres. They also acquire small publishing companies or medium publishing companies and take them under their imprint umbrella. And then there are small press. A lot of small press have a very rigorous vetting process because they don't have the budget to take on a lot of authors, because they have to work within their model. And a lot of time, these small presses would also work as hybrid presses, hybrid publishing companies with self-published authors. So I'll come to hybrid publishing now. Hybrid publishing usually would be small presses that work with independent authors, indie authors, self-published authors. Under hybrid publishing, authors might have greater creative control over their books. And in exchange for maybe they would invest some amount in the production aspects or in the marketing aspects in the process of publishing a book. But all this will be detailed into the agreement, into the contract that you'd be signing under hybrid publishing model. I want to point out some things to look out for when you are going for traditional publishing or hybrid publishing. Traditional publishing, they have a process through which they acquire books. That could be directly approaching the authors, or it could be you approaching the companies or working through literary agents. Usually it is working through literary agents. Agents have vetted the projects that they are representing to these big companies. And whatever is their process, usually it would be mentioned on their website. In India, the concept of literary agent is relatively new, but it's picking up. So when you're going for these companies, make sure that if a publisher who is claiming to be a traditional publisher, and if they're asking you for investing in your book in the publishing process, technically they are not traditional publisher. In traditional publishing, usually the publisher takes the entire financial responsibility of your book. So they should not be ideally asking you for any monetary investment in it. Now it's up to you whether you use your advance to help your book or not. So that is something separate. But usually the traditional publisher is not going to ask you for money to publish a book. And if someone is asking you for that, that in itself should be a big red flag to let you know that this is not the company that it's presenting itself to be. If it is a hybrid company, then they should be very upfront about it with you. That's something that you have to look for when you're working with a traditional company. If you're working with a literary agent, again, be very vigilant about what they do, how they do it, what are their contacts, whether they are the right people to represent your book to traditional publishers. So you have to be very careful in the vetting process of a literary agent. Now, there are websites where you can go to find out how credible literary agents are, and I'll link one of such websites where you can check that. Coming to self-publishing. I am a self-published author, so I feel more comfortable talking about self-publishing. Now, under self-publishing, you have, I would say, two variants of it. So one is indie publishing, DIY publishing. And in that also, I would say there would be one category where you are doing everything, right from writing the book to creating the cover and formatting the inside, right down to marketing and promoting your book. Everything is done by you. And a lot of indie authors would start this way. Then there is the second half of this model would be where you are the publisher, but you are hiring experts to do different tasks for you. So you would be hiring an editor to edit the book. You'd be hiring a cover designer to design the book and work with them and decide whether to hire a cover designer or not, and working with them with what ideas you have. Basically, you are making the decision about the cover, but someone else is actually doing the work. Same goes with interiors. Same could be with promoting your book. You could hire a PR company to help you promote your book. Basically, you are wearing the publisher's hat, but hiring people to do the actual work. And then there is assisted self-publishing, where you are working with a company, a publishing company, which specializes in helping self-published authors. And they could have custom packages for you or built-in packages, and based on what your budget is, you can pick a package and then work with them. Now, things that you should look out for when you're working with a self-publishing company. You have to be very clear about what are your requirements. What do you actually want from these companies, so that when you are looking at the various packages that they offer you, you know exactly what you want and what you're getting versus what you're not getting. And while you are communicating with these companies, make sure you pay special attention on how they're communicating with you. Whether they take their own sweet time to get back to you or they are prompt in their responses. That doesn't mean that you email them today and in 15 minutes you get a response. That's not, I would say, is being prompt. Prompt is they have a set process. Any email they get, within 24 hours or 48 hours, they get back to you. They have that process and they abide by it. They don't leave you hanging and you're waiting for weeks wondering what they have decided and whether they're going to answer your question. Look out for these things, because they should be a red flag to you if they are not being prompt with their responses. Because when it comes to later on when your book is published and you need some help with your book, how are they going to handle those things then if they're not handling it correctly right from get-go? So just keep these things in mind. Also, very important, make sure you talk to them about royalty payment, and I'll talk about it a little later. So these are a few things that you have to keep in mind when you are deciding which publishing path you should go with. But which one is right for you? This is a question I get a lot when someone writes to me and says this is a publishing company that they are considering and is it right for them? But before I answer this question, let me know which phase of your writing publishing journey you are at. Let me know in the comments below. Alright, so which publishing company, publishing path is right for you? Here's the thing, I cannot answer that for you. You and only you can answer that question because you have all the inputs. But To help you figure out, I can give you some things that I would consider if I was undecided about which path to take. There's a lot to consider. Firstly, from small things like what genre are you publishing? Does the traditional publishing options support that genre? Right down to royalty payments. So there's a whole lot you have to think about, but just to give you like the basics, like 5 things that you should think about while you are deciding which publishing path to take. The first one is the barrier that is there. Like I said, if there is a genre you're writing in which is not popular in the traditional publishing market, it makes sense to go a different route. Correct? It could be hybrid publishing, it could be self-publishing, it could be assisted self-publishing. You have to think about that. How much of a barrier you're going to face when you want to publish your book. Traditional publishing is very difficult to get into because there is a big financial risk and not all publishers are going to be willing to take that. But if you plan to go with self-publishing, of course, it's going to be easy because no one is going to stop you from self-publishing. You are the publisher, you can decide to do whatever. The next thing that you would want to consider is how much control do you want? What are your strengths and your weaknesses? Would you just rather focus on the creative part of writing a book? Then you would prefer to go with traditional publishers who would take the responsibility of actual production, distribution, all those things. They'll take it off your plate so that you can focus on the creative part of it. Of course, marketing, the authors are still expected to participate in the marketing activity, but a lot of decision making will be off your plate. That's the advantage of traditional publishing, to an extent, even hybrid publishing. But self-publishing, you have total control, total creative control of your project, of your book, right down from writing the book to creating covers, designing promotion activities, everything. Every single decision is in your hand. Of course, if you're going with a self-publishing company, then you have to think about how much access will you have, how much authority you'll have while making these decisions. If you want all the decision-making power in your hand and a self-publishing company is not going to let you have that, then you have to think about the other options. So whether it is traditional publishing, hybrid, assisted self-publishing, or doing everything by yourself, you have to think about how much control you want. Then the next thing to think about is cost. Now, when you are going for traditional publishing, the publisher, while signing you, while acquiring your book, they'll offer you an advance. So that's money coming in from the get-go, right? In hybrid publishing, it could be a combination, but in self-publishing, you're not getting any money up front. Instead, you have to put in a lot of money in producing your book. It could be paying a self-publishing company up front who will then take care of designing the cover and setting up your distribution and all those things. But if you're doing it yourself, then you have to pay whoever you are hiring to help you self-publish your book. That is a very big factor in deciding whether you want to go the traditional publishing route and slog through the process of sending query letters and approaching different publishing companies and asking them to read your book. It could take months, it could take years. Or if you have the money, or if you can come up with the money to help you produce the book, you can hire a self-publishing company, or you can do it yourself by hiring the right people to help you. And it's something that a lot of people think is not going to cost a lot, but publishing in general is very costly, and you have to think about what is right for you from the financial point of view. Then comes royalties. Now, I mentioned earlier that in traditional publishing, you get an advance, but you have to also understand how royalties work, not only in self-publishing, but also understand how it works in traditional publishing and hybrid publishing, because that will help you decide which path to take. Now, in traditional publishing, when you get an advance, you have to earn back that advance. And after that, you start getting paid royalties. Whereas in self-publishing, depends on the path that you've taken. If you've gone with a assisted self-publishing model, then you have to understand what the self-publishing company has defined as royalty payments and what are the terms and conditions of it. If you're doing it all by yourself, then still you have to go to the vendor platforms like Amazon, like Pothi, and understand how they're going to pay you once you start earning royalties on your book. And it's not as simple as the market price of the book is 100 rupees and you get 50% of that, so you're getting 50 rupees as your royalty amount. It's not as simple as that. And I'm working on making a video where I'll go more in detail about how royalties work and how royalties are calculated from this self-published angle, because that's how I'm doing things, so I can speak better on that. So make sure you're subscribed to this channel and your notification bell is turned on so that you know exactly when that video goes up. Now, the next thing that you would want to think about when you are deciding which way to go is rights management. In traditional publishing, your contract will let you know who owns the rights to your books. Usually you sign the rights to the publisher. The duration and all the other details will be mentioned in the contract. But know that in most cases, you'll be handing over your copyright. In hybrid publishing, here is where the advantage of doing hybrid is you can negotiate how long the publisher has your royalty for, because you're also investing your money in hybrid publishing. It could be the publisher has the rights to your book for 3 years or 5 years or 7 years or somewhere therein, and after that you get the copyright to your work. But also understand how that will be transferred to you. So if you are talking to a hybrid publisher, ask these questions. What does that look like? What documents will be signed to transfer your rights back to you for the book? But when it comes to self-publishing and you're working with a self-publishing company, again, understand who owns the copyright. A lot of self-publishing companies point this out in their marketing material itself, but it's good to understand these things. But if you're doing it yourself and you are the person who's uploading the books on different vendor platforms, usually you own the rights, but it's good to read through and understand the terms and conditions of these vendor sites. But in most cases, you are most likely to own the rights to your work. Now, the other aspect of copyright is, especially if you are self-publishing your book. I'm sure in traditional publishing, the publisher is going to be very vigilant and careful about these things. But when it comes to self-publishing and you are using some kind of graphics in your book, in the interiors of the book or in the cover, in the book cover, make sure that you own all the rights to the images, to the graphics, to anything that you're using in your promotional material. All the copyrights to those things either should be yours or you have the correct license to use them. So be aware of these things so that when you are making a decision which way to go, you know your strengths, your weaknesses, what works for you, what does not, what is your priority, what you are willing to let go. And based on these things, you can then make an informed decision about what is the right path for you. Maybe you just want to test the water, so you would go with self-publishing, but know what that means for your author brand, because a lot of publishers don't want to work with self-published authors. But then again, there are a lot of exceptions to this rule. You'll hear a lot of authors who first started with self-publishing and then big publishing companies approached them and acquired their books. So know all these things while you're making a decision. Of course, there is a lot more that you should consider when you're making a decision. And I made I think 2 videos about the different types of publishing companies, and I go a little more detail into what are the different types of publishing paths that you can consider, as well as I made a video where I compared the two traditional publishing and self-publishing, and I go into more details and I talk about awards and getting your books placed in physical stores. I'll link both these videos in the description section of this video. If you need more help, definitely check out my website. You'll find a lot of resources there. Also, check the playlists on my YouTube channel. I have created playlists on videos that I've created depending on the different aspects of self-publishing. Also, I have a playlist called FAQ, the most frequently asked questions that I get regarding self-publishing. I'll make sure to link it here, and I'll see you in the next one.